2016 election was a mudslinging mess that further polarized our already politically divided country, each side constantly accusing the other of being un-American and undemocratic. I decided to sit down with some of my peers and mentors so I could gain perspective on what people thought of one of the most important principles of American democracy, democracy itself. If you would like to state your name and your political ideology for the video.
My name is Cindy Bozigian, and I am a Republican.
I'm here with Jake Bleiler to interview him about democracy. So, Jake, what is your self-described political party or ideology?
My political party is, I mainly identify myself as a Democratic moderate.
Would you please state your name and your political ideology?
Ed Romeo, and I am the registered Republican.
I'm here interviewing Jenna Wishton.
Hello.
Jenna, would you please describe yourself politically in terms of party and ideology?
I would say I'm a moderate, leaning more towards the liberal side.
Very cool, very cool. So, in your kind of ideology, what's the value of democracy to you?
I'd say democracy is the ability to do what you yourself think is best for yourself personally, and not having someone else dictate what they think is best for you.
Okay, awesome. So, what is the value of democracy in your opinion?
I think democracy is very important. It's the cornerstone of our entire country.
Okay, very good answer, because if you don't have a good base of democracy, how are you going to have any other civil rights or anything of that nature?
Exactly.
As a Republican, what do you see the value of democracy as?
I think it's the cornerstone of our society and what America's based on.
Right. Definitely really important to the American value system. So in that moderate democratic ideology, what in your opinion is the value of democracy?
Value of democracy, to me, I think it's number one on my list that we have to preserve in America, because I believe that democracy, it separates us from very corrupt countries.
How do you think the idea of liberty and freedom relates to democracy?
It's a direct correlation, because our liberty was fought for to achieve democracy in our country.
Right, like during the American Revolution and the Civil War.
Exactly.
Those kind of things?
Yes.
How do you think the idea of liberty and freedom relates to democracy?
Like everything, it makes up democracy.
Like they're important components.
Correct.
Democracy, it relates with freedom, in my opinion, and everyone in America, we have the right to say whatever we want, and I feel like democracy prevents us from becoming those countries where we have to keep our opinions to ourselves because our government may not like what they hear.
Right, like it's an important safeguard.
Yeah.
How do you think that democracy and the idea of liberty and freedom relate?
With democracy, you get to make your own choices as to who is running your country, who is going into your government, and I think that's very important when you're making your own choices to elect people that you think represent your own personal beliefs.
Throughout American history, there have been a lot of political figures that have had a questionable relationship with democracy. People like the anti-Semitic Henry Ford, or the tyrannical Joseph McCarthy, or the really racist George Wallace, that have had unstable morals, yet also a very successful political career. And this can be kind of translated to today, because in a Gallup poll, they found that about 30% of voters today would vote for someone who's anti-democracy if they have a good enough rhetoric and a good enough agenda in their opinion. So in light of a study like this, should democracy be protected by so-called gatekeepers in the form of things like superdelegates or party leaders, or should democracy be able to stand up and defend itself?
Democracy should be able to stand up and defend itself.
Would you care to elaborate?
Those who have those ideological, outrageous ideas of how the democracy should be run, it's their right and what we pride ourselves in our country about. But we also have a strong force of people looking at above and beyond those ideologies. They may not be the right ideologies, but like every wrong problem, there may be a right answer somewhere within those ideologies.
Should democracy be protected by so-called gatekeepers, or should democracy be left to fend for itself?
I really think that it must be protected because a lot of what we're seeing today, we think like, sorry if like this like gets to people like what I'm about to say. Sorry, her professor. So just kind of relating our president off of the main event in the 40s, the Holocaust. A lot of people think that won't happen again, that we recognize that type of evil power and that will prevent that from happening. But the thing is, a lot of things that what our president did, it's a lot of things that you could relate off of what Hitler did to gain the support of the Germans. Like, he told them what they wanted to hear. Like, the Germans, they hated the Jews. They thought that they'd take up space. They didn't want them here. So that's exactly what Hitler did. He said he'd get rid of them, which he got rid of most of them, which is pretty scary. And so that's how he got the Germans to be on his side. And now with our president, he stated that the Latino illegal immigrants and illegal immigrants in general, that they shouldn't be here, that they shouldn't be taking up most of our jobs. A lot of Americans have that opinion that they shouldn't be here. And so Trump, he kind of filled a lot of Americans' minds with something that they wanted to hear, just so he can take office. So that's what I believe in, that our president right now is very much doing what a lot of historic tyrants did in the past.
Should democracy be protected by so-called gatekeepers in the forms of things like superdelegates or party leaders, or should democracy be left to defend for itself?
I think a little bit of both. I think to some extent the party leaders should protect it since that is part of their job, but at the end of the day, it is up to us, the people, to choose whether we really want democracy or not.
Should democracy be protected by so-called gatekeepers in the forms of things like superdelegates or party leaders, or should democracy be left to defend for itself?
I absolutely think democracy should be protected by the gatekeepers. I think it's the most important thing in our country, and without democracy, I think we become a socialist society or even a communist society, and I don't feel we can let that happen. So however we can protect democracy, I think we need to do that.
Okay. You realize by saying that you're advocating for more government intervention, and therefore that would be leaning towards a more government-controlled society, which is in itself socialist or communist.
Well, if the government control is there strictly to protect democracy, I think it's warranted.
And to go off what you were saying about Trump and your words being a historic tyrant, Donald Trump has been very outspoken in his distrust of the electoral process and the free press on Twitter, as we've seen. But many political scientists have argued that these two institutions are the backbone to democracy. So in light of this opinion, how do you think Trump's tweets regarding the media and elections have impacted democracy's stability?
I really think that democracy's stability is kind of falling because the 2016 election, I really think, in my opinion, in my lifetime, I think that's the most hated election that there's ever been. I've never seen so many arguments, so much hate for the other side that in the past. Like, I remember the 2012 election wasn't that bad, 2010 wasn't that bad. The 2016 one, that's just
a bloodbath.
Yeah, it's like a bloodbath. Oh, sorry, I meant 2008 election. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like it's a bloodbath. I feel like what I really feel like is the person that we elected as our president, he doesn't really have a past to make him a really great president. Like the things that he's done, like the whole scandals of pornography stars, the whole corrupt businessmen, his own show, basically him firing people. I don't really think his pastime has really been a great example of what democracy is to stand for, and like we should protect it, because it's the president's job to protect democracy. And if he's promoting stuff that's totally inappropriate for anyone to do, I really don't think that he's the one that should be representing democracy. And so I don't think it should be defended for itself, because if we say that it should be defended for itself, then that means that we're okay with him defending it when we really need someone else defending it, because if no one else defends it, I feel like it's going to collapse in the near future.
How do you think Trump's tweets regarding the media and elections have impacted democracy's stability and viability in America?
I don't think Trump's tweets have damaged democracy at all. I believe that in the voting process, he was tweeting things that were truthful. Maybe people didn't vote twice, but I believe that there were people that voted on other people's social security numbers. I believe that because they don't check for IDs and they don't check to make sure that you're the person that you say you are, that a lot of fraud can happen during elections, which is why I believe we should absolutely count every vote and make sure everyone has to show their ID to show that they are who they say they are. So there isn't fraud. But Trump tweeting those things, I don't believe harms democracy in any way.
Do you feel less trust in the electoral process since you've read accusations from Mr. Trump?
I don't feel less trust in the electoral process since hearing of Donald Trump's tweets. But I do feel that the whole system not having identification being shown, I believe that does lead towards fraud. But his tweets haven't left me feeling less trustful of the government and how they do the electoral process.
How do you think Trump's tweets regarding the media and elections have impacted democracy, if at all?
I think it has a huge impact. I mean, history has proven it with George Bush Jr. and Al Gore. That was a very interesting race. Very, photo finish type race. And I don't necessarily think the right person won. I don't think, I think that our electoral process definitely needs to be improved. A lot.
Right. And how do you think the tweets have impacted people's perception of the free press?
I think it only it fuels the fire.
It enhances the divide between the
Divides between the parties.
Right. How do you think Trump's tweets regarding the media and elections have impacted American democracy and its stability and vitality?
Well, first, I think it's definitely made people much more sensitive to other types of beliefs. They have become much more, They don't want to listen to other ideas anymore.
Like
they just
polarized?
Yeah, they've become much more polarized, and I think it's a very dangerous thing what Trump is doing, calling out the media, calling them fake news, and I think it shouldn't be taken so seriously by the people.
In conducting these interviews, the differences in different people's ideologies became much more apparent. However, if one looks past the small differences in these interpretations of our politics, our underlying common trait of a love for democracy becomes very apparent, as seen with the answers to this last question. Is there any ideological concept more important than democracy?
No, I don't think so.
In this complex of the importance of democracy and what it means, do you think there's anything more important than democracy?
That's a difficult question. Honestly, I think that democracy is the most important thing, because without democracy, you won't be able to choose anything for yourself, and without being able to choose things for yourself, you wouldn't be able to control anything in your life.
Like it's an important starting platform to be able to create other good ideologies.
Yes.
So in your opinion, is there any ideological concept more important than democracy?
Nothing is more important to me than democracy.
All in all, our devotion to democracy unites us, and even though we have different ideas about how to maintain it, we all want to achieve the same end goal, a perfect democracy. This sentiment is best summed up by my first interviewee, Jenna Bushton, in her closing remarks. Is there anything you would like to add on the concept of democracy and American values?
I'd like to say that democracy has always been a central part of America ever since the founding, and though we may stray from it a little bit, I think we'll always come back to it.
Well, thank you, Miss Jenna Bushton.
Yes.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Andrus.